Welcome to Tonetalks. Welcome to Tonetalks. Welcome to Tonetalks.
How everybody doing today? This is Antonio Moore from Tonetalks. I wanted to have a discussion about this Logan Paul, Floyd Mayweather fight that I just saw that was total nonsense. Give y'all my take on it. I just didn't even understand what that was. This is going to be the show for this week. So this will be the show for this week. Don't expect one on Thursday. Please, right now, please share this. Subscribe, press the bell to get the notifications. Also, support this channel on Patreon, Tonetalks.org. So, I watched some of the fight. Can't say I watched it all, but I watched a good chunk. And it was a bunch of hugging. This white guy seemed like he was about two times as big as Floyd. And Floyd had him on the ropes. For those people that kind of know fighting, Floyd don't normally, not saying he don't use the ropes, but he was toying with that guy the whole fight. Guy got gassed, gave it all up after the first round. I don't even know what that was. But it goes further than that. We back out and this Logan Paul, I don't know how he got into the ring with Floyd. He's 0-1 in non-professional fighting. Floyd Mayweather is 50-0. Maybe top 5. Some people might even have him at the top of the list as far as pound for pound greatest fighters of all time. And white privilege got Logan Paul into the ring. When I say white privilege, it's the kind of fan base, it's the kind of insatiable demand for his appearance, his look, the kind of need to see a white man fight this black man that he had no right, no resume, no criteria to be fighting, and to see if he could actually stand his own. Even after the fight, people who don't understand fighting were sitting up talking about how, it's good that he didn't get knocked out. Floyd is substantially smaller than him and much older, so you don't gauge the fight based on just whether he got knocked out or not. But I back out and I say it feels like for Floyd to have taken this fight is an utter disrespect to boxing, the sweet science that it is, and to the craft of entertainment that comes through boxing. But it also reflects a larger context of this moment, which I feel is built out of selling out. For a long time, entertainers, whether they be musicians, boxers, whatever, they didn't sell products. They did their craft, whether it was acting, boxing, whatever else. They weren't selling McDonald's in between. You didn't hear Ving Rhames with Arby's. As we came into the 80s, we started having Billy D. Williams, Colt 45, and it was literally a joke. We also have to remember in the era before that, white folks, while we had Motown, had not fully accepted or acclimated to black folks being in their homes and on their screens. We see this shift through Motown. We see Billy D. Williams come about with Star Wars, and we see him selling this liquor and it's seen as a joke. But then we transition as we come into the 90s and the 2000s where you could sell anything. You can sell anything. Boost Mobile, bad credit cards, Russell Simmons. As long as you're making money, black folks tried to celebrate that as a success for black capitalism in some way. And thus a success for black community. What we see now with Floyd Mayweather, and as we see with many other entertainers, you got Jill Scott selling nationwide. You got Tamika Mallory with Cadillac doing poems about black women and black empowerment, or it be Manuel Acho with Lexus, basically diffusing black males and black politics, talking about everybody having to get along. You have this guy who isn't ADOS, basically anchoring himself inside of ADOS males and their struggles and representing to white America a larger multiculturalism. Well, this match kind of represents that as well. The fact that Floyd took this fight is not only a disrespect to his own legacy, but it also speaks to a larger deterioration of how black folks are able to see the consequence of not holding themselves up to a higher standard for themselves. There's no way that you as a boxer that's 50-0 and people will come in here and have their own comments and talk about, well, he can make some money and da. There's no way as a boxer that has spent your career getting to 50-0 that you should get in the ring with this man who is unqualified to be there. Let's be real that Logan Paul just had no business in the ring with Mayweather. Mayweather, one of the top 5 boxers, top 5 to 10 for some people, but for me, top 5 boxers of all time. Really, I believe, brought himself down to fight this man. And I believe it is, a lot of it is built out of white privilege. Let's talk about it and just get a context for what we just saw. Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul is a prank, but boxing is a dangerous game. The bout between one of the greatest boxers of all time and an obnoxious YouTuber is lucrative, but even experienced fighters get hurt. This is The Guardian. Gianni Versace was a true Renaissance man, a cultural figure whose name still lives on 20 years after his death. Logan Paul, standing in the late fashion designer's mansion in Miami Beach during a media event on Thursday, spouting garbage about knocking out one of the greatest boxers of all time, will also be remembered, albeit for different reasons. I am that dude, the guy who does something no one else thinks they can do. What Logan Paul is a representative of in some ways, he calls himself a maverick, but the ego of this moment and also the inversion of, I guess, racial stereotypes and all kind of things that come from that. The fact that you're going to say that you're going to knock out a guy who has obviously put himself in position, a black man, to be one of the greatest of all time at his craft, it makes no sense. Now, people say that's just for promotion, but it's also largely disrespectful. And I am that dude, the guy who does something no one else does. He said before scotching the record 50-0, he hasn't knocked out anyone for a decade. That could very well change on Sunday night at Miami's Hard Rock Cafe, Hard Rock Stadium, when Mayweather 44 returns to the ring once again to face a YouTuber whose fine accomplishments include giving CPR to a fish and tasering dead rats. The pretty boy who was all smiles during fight week, brushing off accusations about being no more than a joke while stressing that although he has indeed retired, he will never quit entertaining and earning money. Well, that's the problem, is when is it a clown show? What you saw with Mayweather, for those people that have watched him and watched him box, is not a boxing match. Mayweather had a man who was twice his size, at least appeared that way at times, on the ropes as though he was the smaller man in Logan. Mayweather pressed the fight and fought him like a child with his gloves up and just like he was teaching boxing lessons. Logan Paul spent most of the fight wrestling, not boxing. I say all this because I don't think we understand how much all of this is deteriorating. The decadent veil. I don't think we understand they're throwing anything at us to keep us confused and keep us from focusing on everything that is important. That match should not have been on TV, but they need it on TV to keep us focused on that instead of what we need to be doing in terms of black politics, in terms of black community, in terms of black family, in terms of black America, and America at large. But I have a couple of more things I want to talk about to kind of frame the context of Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul. Logan Paul's 0-1. Fought one other YouTuber and lost. So you lose to a YouTuber amateur match, and for that, what you get in return is to fight one of the greatest fighters of all time. And the only reason it looks respectful is not because you boxed with him, but because you wrestled and held him and you were much more bigger than him. People don't understand. Mayweather has never been a knockout artist. He's a defensive fighter, and he fought this guy who had many years of age on him, being much younger, but also had, I think, 40 pounds on him, and leaned on him, and that was all he did the whole fight. When you look at the stats, this guy literally landed 28 punches in Logan Paul. 28. He was landing like 10 and 15% of his punches, depending on what type. That is a failure. But white people always seem to fail up. while we fell down. For him to be such a failure at this whole thing and then fail up is just a tragedy. This isn't about, do you think you can do better than him? I'm not a boxer. What I'm speaking to is the fact that this even happened and how this is a harbinger of a cracking in the decadent veil of black celebrity, because they don't respect their craft and they also don't respect the audience that they're delivering their craft to. But in a larger context, how we as black folks don't understand the ecosystem of white privilege that we're baked into, where no matter who they are, they always get the right of way. So you, Logan Paul, 0-1, have no right to be in the ring with Floyd Mayweather, but you get to get in there with him because you're a white male and you got fans. Being a white male in the country that, again, is half white, nearly half white, and white people have almost all of the wealth. So they want to see you. They want to see you fight Mayweather. They want to see if you can knock out an older, smaller man and then be able to champion you as some kind of success, racial and otherwise. Floyd Mayweather, let's give a context to who he was. Nicknames: Pretty Boy, Money, TBE, which means the best ever. His weight classes were super featherweight, lightweight, light welterweight, light middleweight. He's 5'8". This guy was 6'1". 5'8". He's never fought, I believe, above 152 pounds. He came in at 160, I think, 155 to fight this fight, but he's always been under, I think, 152. And he was fighting this huge man. It was almost like clownish. I mean, actually, it was clownish. He fought 51 fights and has 51 wins. They're counting this. They really shouldn't. Floyd Joy Mayweather, born Floyd Joy Sinclair in 1977, is an American professional boxing promoter and former professional boxer. He competed between 96 and 2015 and made a one-fight comeback in 2017. During his career, he won 15 major world titles, including the rings title in 5 weight classes, the lineal championship in 4 weight classes, and retired with an undefeated record, which is unheard of. As an amateur, Mayweather won a bronze medal in the featherweight division at the 96 Olympics, 3 U.S. Golden Glove championships at lightweight, light flyweight, and featherweight, and the U.S. National Championship at featherweight. And understand, he took all takers. He fought Canelo Alvarez. He fought Oscar De La Hoya. He fought Manny Pacquiao. He fought everybody. Why was he in the ring with him tonight? And I don't want to hear about the millions of dollars. I want to understand, where do we go from here if this is the content that is going to be delivered? Mayweather was named Fighter of the Decade for the 2010s by the Boxing Writers Association of America, a 2-time winner of the Ring Magazine's Fighter of the Year Award, 98 and 07, a 3-time winner of the BWAA Fighter of the Year Award. He is often referred to as the best defensive boxer in history, as well as being the most accurate puncher since the existence of CompuBoxing. We saw that tonight. For those people that didn't understand what they watched, like I said earlier, Logan Paul was at like 10 and 15% in landing punches. Mayweather was at 40 and 45%. It was like 2 different boxing matches, and I would argue he played with that man. He didn't really box him. He knew early on that. Well, he knew before the fight started. I don't know if people understand the level of training that and should go watch his training tapes and go watch Mayweather box in prior matches. He didn't really box in this match. He just kind of like walked around and took y'all money from pay-per-view and did a disrespect to the boxing arena to me. And I don't think this brings new fans. This actually deteriorates the content itself. Now, we can argue whether it should exist at all. Maybe this leads to a step where we move past this as content. But if we do, maybe this isn't the right way to get there. Let me read a little more on Mayweather. Mayweather is one of the most lucrative pay-per-view attractions of all time in any sport. He topped the Forbes and Sports Illustrated list of 50 highest paid athletes in 2012 and 2013, and the Forbes list again in both 14 and 15. This is the highest paid athlete in the world. And so that brings us to the question, if it's all about the money, can you be the greatest? Because you get into a space where you become problematic not only to your sport, but also, I believe, to black people and black politics. Because you're willing to do anything. You're willing to wear OnlyFans hats as you walk to the ring. You're willing to grease yourself down. You're willing to get in there with a white man that has no legitimate resume and put yourself and all of the support that fans have put into you over the years on the line for another like couple $1 million or whatever it is. And none of it, that was an awful fight. Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather ends in boos as each fighter makes millions. YouTube personality goes 8 rounds against unbeaten champ. Mayweather lands 43 blows on night to Paul's 28. That's nothing. That's a small amount of lands, even for Mayweather, but particularly for Paul. I don't want to hear that he went 8 rounds, because he didn't go 8 rounds. What he did was he had 1 round where he was able to use his size, and then he just was tired the rest of the fight and holding on to Mayweather. He landed 28 punches. Only 10%. So that means he threw, we know 10, 15% was his land rate. So that means he threw a mere 300 punches or so and landed 10% and was just out there flailing. And he had no business showing that to us as the world and getting paid for that. The fight between one of the greatest boxers in history and one of the best YouTube personalities in his family, come on, bro, ended in predictable fashion on Saturday night as Floyd Mayweather danced around Logan Paul for 8 rounds without inflicting any real damage. The 44-year-old Mayweather retired from professional boxing with a perfect 50 wins from 50 fights, but came back to the ring for an 8-round special exhibition against Paul, who has found fame as a YouTube personality with 66 million social media followers. Again, I'm coming back to it. This is white privilege on full display. It has reinvented itself, and that privilege comes in the fact that they have all of the wealth. So basically, you as Mayweather have to fall into the realm of fighting this nothing fighter 0-1 to be able to access his fan base, because his fan base are the white Americans largely that control all of the wealth. If not them, then their parents, their uncles, their aunties. So as a result, they'll pay the $50 for pay-per-view, and then they'll kind of boo against you. They'll root against you because they want you to fail anyway, as Mayweather. Against Paul, who has found fame as a YouTube personality with 66 million social media followers. Mayweather beat the likes of Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez, and Ricky Hatton in the Hall of Fame boxing career. Paul once got to the 4th week of the Masked Singer. Mayweather gave up nearly 20 years, 4 inches, and 34 pounds to Paul, who at 190 pounds was by far the heaviest fighter Mayweather had ever faced. I want everybody to understand, just that makes the fight make no sense. You don't put people that are that big a difference in size in there to box each other. And you definitely don't put them in there and expect the smaller guy to knock out the bigger guy. It didn't matter as a man whose breathtaking reflexes and defensive skills meant even the best boxer in the world could barely lay a glove on him during his pump, handled the slow and clumsy Paul with ease. In truth, Mayweather could probably have ended the fight if he wanted to, but he knows his audience, and perhaps with an eye on a lucrative rematch, let them have their money's worth as the fight went the distance. And that's my problem. He did this with Conor McGregor. If you are going to do the exhibition match, you should give us the fair fight. Now, I'm not saying that you try to murder the man, but knock him out if you can. And it felt like Mayweather realized this man had no business even being in the ring to box, even as a sparring partner, and kind of gave up on it. So then at that point, you're just taking people money. In the first round, Paul used his weight to manhandle Mayweather and unleashed a flurry of punches, but none broke through his opponent's guard. In the second, he let Paul throw a few jabs. But Mayweather, with a half smile, easily dodged him as the larger man tired himself out. Paul's biggest mistake may have come in the 4th round when he landed a few blows on Mayweather, who attacked for the first time in the fight and continued the onslaught in the 5th. Paul, to his credit, continued to swing, hoping a lucky punch would connect. But Mayweather was never in serious trouble. By the end of the fight, Paul had landed 28 of his 217 punches, while Mayweather had connected on 43 of his 107. It's ridiculous. There were no judges and no official winners were declared, although it was pretty clear Mayweather would have won easily if there had been. The fight ended in boos from the crowd, most of whom had either paid to see a shock or see the often odious Paul get his comeuppance. What they had got was a light sparring session with Mayweather unwilling to risk ruining his flawless record by opening himself up to a lucky punch. I had fun. I'm not 21 anymore, said Mayweather. He's a great young fighter, better than I thought he was. Mayweather should have been honest. He wasn't a good fighter. He was a wrestler. He's a tough, raw competitor. I was surprised by him tonight. Then Mayweather remembered who mattered. I want to thank all the fans who came out. I want to thank the fans who bought pay-per-view. Mayweather was asked whether there will be another fight. We don't know what the future holds. I have to talk to my team. I'm not 25 anymore, but I have fun. Paul, meanwhile, looked like a man who was relieved to still have all his teeth intact, while also earning a tidy sum. It's one of the greatest moments of my life. I'm happy to have made it out, he said. While the athletic credentials of the fights were questionable, the ability of both men to make money is not. Mayweather is estimated to have made $100 million alone from his 2017 fight with Conor McGregor. Paul, who made his name as YouTube prankster alongside with his brother, is already a multimillionaire at the age of 26, and both he and Mayweather have made millions more from Sunday's fight, which sold at $50 a pop on pay-per-view. Even that got messed up. I don't know if everybody was clear, but Showtime streaming fell apart because they couldn't keep up with how much they expected people to actually buy. And so a lot of people paid for this fight and had to demand a refund because they couldn't get access. So I say all this to say I wanted to come to you and say what we see is a deterioration of content. I think that what's happening right now is the black decadent male in particular is trying to reinvent itself. I think that all of these people that had some stardom in the 90s or the 2000s, they refuse to walk away into the sunset. They keep coming back with something that is far from quality content, and we all have to question it as it comes up. And this is just one example of that. Deliver boxing at the very least. Not sparring, not wrestling, but boxing. And I don't think this man can, meaning Logan Paul, do that with a fighter at the level or even the size of Floyd Mayweather. This is Tone Talks. I wanted to come to you and have this discussion. Please go to tonetalks.org to subscribe or donate. Share this video. I'm very, very disgusted with what happened with this whole fight, and I believe it never should have happened at all. Thank you.